Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'm just so delighted. First, let me say many thanks to Roger Lee, our adjunct professor and program manager, who's taken on the responsibility and leadership for organizing these wonderful panels. He's done an amazing job. So hats off to Roger for all of his accomplishments this year with the diversity panel and this panel also. And of course, this one is near and dear to my heart because we're talking about women entrepreneurs. I think, as I like to say, all of us are entrepreneurs at heart. I think women especially are entrepreneurs at heart. We need to be innovative. We've got a lot of things that we've got to do all the time. As a female dean, as a mom, as a professor, as a daughter, as all of these roles that we play, there are a lot of expectations. I would dare to say more on women than there are on men. And so, we seem to navigate that road very successfully. And I'm just so interested to hear about everyone's journey and everyone's story, because life is a story after all. We're the stars of our stories, I used to tell my students. So I want to hear all about these wonderful women entrepreneurs, these stars that can inspire, not only young females, but also everyone with their stories and their challenges, their opportunities, their advantages that they've had, in the workplace on their own. So I'm very excited to have everyone here, and I will hand it back off to Roger.
Thank you so much, Dean DeCarolis. So welcome, everybody. This is the third and final part of our Diversity Entrepreneurs in Action series. And today it is all about women. Women entrepreneurs make the world go round. You guys really do. And as a male, my hat is off to you. So again, thank you so much for all that you do. We really celebrate you. We honor you. And today we're going to get into the conversation around what you face, right? The difficulties, but also the challenges. So it's going to be a really, really delightful conversation. And I am honored to be joined by two amazing panelists today. We have Ms. Jenee Chizick-Aguero, and she is the founder of Motivos Magazine. And we also have Debra Tituts. She is the founding executive director of Shine Society of Excellence Incorporated and co-owner of D&K Whip Appeal. And when I tell you that these panelists are beyond inspiring, they truly are. I've had the pleasure of working with them both on many occasions now, virtually, but it's been really an honor and a privilege. So thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Roger. Thank you.
You're so welcome. So let's jump right into our conversation. I'm going to ask each of you to just briefly tell us who you are, what you do as an entrepreneur, and what that journey has been like. And let's start with Debra.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me well? Okay, good. Well, I am Debra Tituts, and as you can see by my name, you see multiple hats that I wear and multiple affiliations. Well, I'll start with my name. Debra is Hebrew and it means bee. I remembered what my name means when I was in middle school. So it means that she is chatty, vibrant, and fun. And she has several projects on the go. That's me. I have several projects on the go. I consider myself a serial edupreneur. So I'm affiliated with Shine, D&K Whip Appeal, as well as Penn Hills Charter School of Entrepreneurship, along with a plethora of other organizations that I love under the entrepreneurial realm of being a social entrepreneur. So that's just a little bit about me and, just discussing my journey as an entrepreneur. It's definitely been a whirlwind. I started when I was in college and I was just so gravitated by the idea of being my own boss. And so and I went to an all women's institution, shout out to Chatham University. So it was a great platform to celebrate women. And we had our Center for Women's in Entrepreneurship, and we had so many women that were so supportive in our journey. And so I was captivated by that. And so I started in college, and I'm just going and going and going in all these different facets. And I love each and every part of what I'm involved in. So that's just a quick snapshot. I know I'll get into a little bit more, but I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Deborah. And you're doing incredible work too with Penn Hill's Charter School of Entrepreneurship. They're the first middle school of entrepreneurship in the nation. So it's incredible that you're coaching those students as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you again. And I'm going to turn it over to Jenee.
I'm Jenee Chizick-Aguero, founder and publisher of Motivos, which is the nation's largest bilingual magazine. It's also a youth empowerment company. In terms of social entrepreneurship, we have a cadre of young people that we mentor and bring up through the media making process. I am a mother, I am a daughter, I am a sister, I am an artist, I am female, I am Christian. If I were to pick three things, I would say female, artist, Christian. I'm also from a very small town, so less than 1,000 people. So it was also very much the forefront of my mind, access to opportunity and resources, and kind of getting out of the confines within which I found myself. So those are kind of defining points that have driven what I do. I studied abroad in Japan. That had a very pivotal point in my life with regard to being heard, being seen, not blending in, making my way, becoming a problem solver, and figuring out how to tell my story so that it made sense in a new space and a new place, a new culture where everything was different. From that small town, I've traveled, lived, worked, volunteered in over 40 countries around the world and have learned 3 languages, went on to study at an Ivy League school, competed Division I as a gymnast, and then worked in Boston and Sydney, Australia, and here in Philadelphia in the publishing world, as well as helped develop and carry out study abroad opportunities for large public universities like Temple University, smaller private colleges like St. Joseph's University. And then the magic of entrepreneurship is that you can bring together your different loves, your different passions, and make magic happen. And so that's kind of the spot that I'm in now in my journey.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Jenee. I remember you came to us virtually last year and you spoke to our students, and it was during the Altamari camp, which was for women, and they were just so empowered and inspired, and I was too. So it's really, really a privilege to have you here as well.
Thank you for having me. Of
course. Great, so we are going to get more into the philosophical side of the conversation now, and I would love to hear from both of you about this. So what I want to know is, what do women face as entrepreneurs? What are the challenges that are unique just to women entrepreneurs? And I'm sure there are many, but yeah, feel free to share those. I'm going to start with Debra on this one.
I love that you asked that question, Roger. I want to say the biggest challenge that I know that women face, and in particular Black women entrepreneurs face, is that feeling like you are worth it, feeling like you are enough, and that what you bring to the table is just as valuable as your counterparts. And you second guess yourself. You question what values and morals and things that you can bring to the table, and whether people will actually take you seriously. So I would find myself often having to tell people about my background, tell people about, the fact that I went to, Yale and university and, wrote 2 curriculum units and things like that. And I have my master's degree and things like that. I felt like I had to put that and kind of walk around with that like a badge every time I'd encountered someone that didn't look like me, right? And so when you're in these different arenas, sometimes it's very challenging because you don't know if people are actually going to take you seriously and really value what you say, because they may question the credentials that you have, and they may question, whether you actually have the background to perform and to do so efficiently and effectively. And so, I look at myself in the mirror often, and, one of my statements, I say to myself, you are enough. I remember I put on one of my, it's like a curriculum vitae, I guess you could call it. But I adapted it this year, and it says on there, I do this for the young ladies, for the little Black girls who were placed in a box of inadequacy by society, and letting them know that you are enough. You are enough. So thank you.
Thank you so much. It just resonates on so many levels, and similar conversations come up in our other panel discussions. So yeah, I love that. And it's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge.
Yeah.
How about you?
Thank you. Yeah.
I would love to know, before answering that question, just by kind of in the chat, who here is just so I can figure out kind of which challenges to share that will resonate more. Who here in the audience is a student? Can you just put a 1 in the chat if you're a student here today? Could be a high school student, a college student, so that I know my audience. There we go. Okay. And can you put a 2? Oh, we're still going. Lots of 1s. Okay. Oh, great. Wow. College and high school. Okay. Super. Can you put a 2 if you are an educator? So maybe you're an instructor, a professor, a teacher. So a 2 if you're an educator, teacher, professor, instructor. Okay, and maybe, oh, still going, good, okay. And then if you are an entrepreneur, put a 3, and you could be a student and an entrepreneur, an instructor and an entrepreneur, of course. Entrepreneurs, okay. Yeah, that's helpful. And just maybe other business owner, just here because you're interested, number 4. Listening in. There we go, okay. Yeah, super. No, that's helpful. So I would say challenges, money is an interesting concept for me. I feel other women as well. It depends how it was managed, maybe in your home growing up. My relationship with money, I'm very conservative. So when I started my business, it was hard to justify letting go of hard-earned money to start something that may or may not work. It almost seemed irresponsible, and I had to be talked into it by a good friend. And this is what worked for me. He said, Jenee, what do you love to do? And I said, travel. I love learning about other cultures and languages and seeing the world, And he said, the money that you spend traveling, do you ever see it again? Do you ever expect to get it back? And I said, no. And he said, okay, this is an adventure. And you're going to learn more from starting a business than you probably would in business school because it's hands-on, experiential, real. And with that, I said, you're right. And I dove in. And so money is an interesting challenge, and how you view money and whether you're willing to let it flow. And with that, I would add a tip, which would be like, don't make money so important. Make people important. The money is important. And when you first start out, there was a challenge in that I had a lot of people interested in being part of what I was doing, but I had to focus my time because you are one person and there are 24 hours in a day, and that's it. I had to focus my time on where the big money was. Why? Because especially when you're starting out, if you don't focus where the big money is, you will die early on. You will not succeed because the monies will dry up. That is the blood flow of the business, which is the body. So focus on the big money to make the biggest impact with the most people, but don't make money itself important, if that makes sense. That would be a big challenge. And then for myself and maybe other women, kind of perfectionism, doing everything really well. So many entrepreneurs who are female, when they first start out, have challenges in, and I face this, memory. Why? Because you're trying to do everything so exact and make sure it's right and make sure it's done and make sure it's perfect. It hurts your brain, the part that makes the decisions, the part that has the memory. And I found myself not remembering things. It happens more to women than to men. I'll give an example of a friend who is a male entrepreneur. He has started 10 businesses in 10 years and they have not all succeeded. And to him, it doesn't matter because it's iterations and figuring it out. And for him, that's fun. For me, and I think this is a female trait, I pour into, I nurture, I want to see this thing that I care about and love and am passionate about succeed and grow. And so for me, I'm geared that way, I'm wired that way. And that can be a challenge because then the stakes seem higher to make sure it succeeds.
Well, so much to that, and I love it. Yeah, I think speaking to the money side, you're absolutely right. People over profits, right? You have no profit if it weren't for people, so we have to take care of people first. And I love that you kind of reiterate that. But I totally relate to what you're saying too about, watching women entrepreneurs work and how much you do put into it. There's a lot that guys can learn from that, for sure. We all need to do a much better job at taking it more seriously and just delving deeper into it. So I admire that for sure, but I can also imagine what the challenge that could be, right? You want it to be perfect. Yeah, that's hard. It's definitely hard. This is great. Thank you both for sharing that. So last but not least, and this is the big question for me, is what can all entrepreneurs do to do a better job of supporting women around the world? And that's men, women included, right? All entrepreneurs, we really do have a moral obligation to support women. And we have to do a much better job of that. So if you could just speak to what we can do to support you. And we'll start with Debra on that.
Love it. The biggest thing I feel as though all entrepreneurs can do for women entrepreneurs is to see women entrepreneurs as entrepreneurs. We are entrepreneurs, right? Dismiss the preconceived notions of, oh, well, women, they lead off of emotion and things like that, and they don't know how to pivot, and just some of these notions that are kind of implanted in us early on, and we believe some of those things are a part of us, right? I had a student one time say to me, it was a young boy, he said to me, he said, you know what, Miss Titus? He said, you need to put your emotions to the side and be about your business. I was not, out of the mouths of babes, he was in 5th grade, and he was right. He was right. And I was able to receive that, right? Tell me your preconceived notions about me as a woman. Put it all out on the table. Put it all out on the table. Do you think I'm an emotional creature? Do you think I can't get things done effectively, efficiently? Do you think I'm all over the place? And, I'm just a perfectionist. It has to be right. I'm not willing to take risks. I have no comfort with risk. I don't have the mindset. Share that with me, and let's have a true conversation and really, really kind of lay those out and squash them out. Just squash them out, because I feel like if there was more of an understanding, then there could be more of a cohesiveness and common ground that's reached across all people involved in entrepreneurship. So I feel like it's really just addressing preconceived notions, many of those implicit biases, talking and putting those things on the table, and seeing how we can move past that, and the acknowledgement of it. Acknowledge that you have an implicit bias, right? And acknowledge that. And then now, how are we going to move forward to meet this common goal that we're trying to do, to really kind of uplift our economy, right? And I feel like that's the biggest challenge I think many people face are those implicit biases. And I feel like if we're able to kind of put those to the side and really have a conversation, that's going to lead us very far.
Amen to that. Yeah, and women are monoliths, right? That's so important too. People need to realize everybody's different, right? And you all have your own ambitions and your own dreams and the ways that you go about pursuing those. So I love that you kind of listened to the student, but then you kind of checked them too and said, hey.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. Jenee, how about you?
Yeah, and I want to connect that emotion part. The emotion comes because there's care, there's compassion, there's meaning, and it's deep, right? And so it goes to the very core of who I am, at least, right? And so it's going to come out in certain ways. I would say more spaces for collaboration to happen, connection, and like amplifying, elevating together with other female entrepreneurs. I feel like often there's a competition, and if we could find more ways to come together rather than to compete, it could really help. I feel like mentorship is crucial to connect with those just a little further ahead of you on the path, on the journey. SCORE has been great about that, for example, and I'm sure there's plenty of resources that Roger could share with those on the call, and with the entrepreneurs especially. But figuring out who are those people that can pour into you as well. As an entrepreneur, we're always pouring out. We're always on. Like, I don't even know how else to say it. Like if you're always looking for a new connection, a new idea, how to solve this problem. You're even taking a shower, like new ideas are popping into. I mean, that's the way I am, right? That usually is typical of an entrepreneur. So then how to connect those, how to amplify those, how to have more platforms. I know those that work in corporate America, there's a certain hierarchy and a level and a training, and then they move up, and then they're recognized, and then their name gets out, and they often parlay that into their own businesses. If you haven't gone that route because of your learning style, because of the connections you do or do not have, you don't have that advantage. And so there's a missing piece there that those in the corporate track have, and those perhaps in the entrepreneurial track would not. And so I feel like if there's bridges that could be built more between the two, that could be really useful. I also feel like, this is because I'm on a number of educational boards, that entrepreneurism is in the lifeblood of many of our students, especially in Philadelphia. And there are not enough curriculums in the schools for entrepreneurship. And it relates highly to students dropping out because they want to earn money and they want real world now. And entrepreneurship is a great way to make that happen. You also have those who are in entrepreneurship who could teach in the schools, but there's not often a way for them to do it part-time, right? And so you have teachers who could do it, and then they leave teaching to start their own business because they're not allowed to do both. So there's also a disconnect there when schools say you can only do one as an educator and not the other. And I've seen that happen on the school board I serve on. A teacher graduated from that school in North Philly, came back to teach, left within 2 years to start his own business. It wasn't possible to do both. If there were a way for the system that exists to allow people to be their full selves, bring their full selves to the table, I think it could really benefit the young people who are impacted by those adults and the entrepreneurs themselves.
I couldn't agree with that. It's very, very important that we allow people to be their full selves. I think so much of that starts in school too. And we tell people you have to take certain courses and classes that you don't want to. It's kind of sending the message, hey, you can only go on one track. And then we kind of reiterate that as we become adults, right? And then women are told, oh, you have to go into nonprofit or corporate. But like you said, imagine a world where people could just be their full selves. They have a work-life balance and take care of kids and families and that world.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad Jenee mentioned that, because that's exactly what we're doing here at our school, Penn Hills Charter School of Entrepreneurship. As the entrepreneurship education coach, it's huge. We need to foster these 21st century skills, and we fostered it from kindergarten all the way up to 8th grade. And now we're seeing how do we marry even, at the higher educational level, and kind of, I think the biggest challenge that we face is, and sorry if I'm going too left field, Roger, but I really wanted to let Jenee know, like, there is hope, and please, let's do some virtual meet and greets, and, let's do some, maybe you can come to Pittsburgh and see our school. There's some great things happening when you shift that mindset, so even if you don't even want to be an entrepreneur, fostering that entrepreneurial mindset at an early age is very pivotal. It is extremely pivotal. And it's not just, a paradigm shift. One day we focus on college and, the next day we focus on trade school and things like that. No, it needs to be a meshing of both of those things, and how can both of those ideologies be utilized and really give our students the opportunities to be free with their thought processes and kind of move forward that way as well. So I'd be happy to connect with anyone else, even on this call as well, just on some of the great work we're doing at Penn Hills Charter School of Entrepreneurship. I just remember before I used to be an educator, so I used to teach. I still am, so I call myself a serial edupreneur. So I'm an educator and I'm also an entrepreneur. So I couldn't leave education, right? I couldn't just go and just start my own business. My businesses are around educating. And so when I came to Penn Hills Charter School, the interview, there was a student that came, and I thought the student was going to escort me to the conference room to sit down for the interview. The child sat there on the interview with me. And from that moment, I said, you know what? I don't want to be at Penn Hills Charter. I need to be at Penn Hills Charter. So when you have that, right, that means so much. So yeah, sorry to go on and on about that, but I feel like it's very important, a very important point you bring up, Jenee.
It is important. And, we have the Motivos programs in the schools as well. And a mentee comes to mind who'd been, with me since 10th grade. And very hard circumstances in the home, went on to win a Gates Millennial Scholarship through all the writing coaching that he received through our programs, and came back after college, and we're chatting, we're still in touch. We still have a very good relationship. And he said, can I pass something by you? I said, sure, jump in the car while I run and do this and do this and do this, which is typically how these conversations happen. And he said, I've been interviewing for jobs. What do you think if I don't take one? I said, tell me what you're doing. And he says, well, I'm learning all about cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, and my goal is X, Y, and Z. So I know the Gates Millennial Scholarship will pay through PhD, but I'm kind of done with education. And I don't really see why I should give all my talents to a company when I can do this for myself. And I said, do you love doing it? Yeah, I wake up at 4:30 in the morning and I do it all the time. I said, you're making money. Yes, I'm making money. I said, you hit the jackpot. You found your why. You love what you do. You're making money. I said, you're fine. There's always a job out there. But this is a young man who's been told his whole life, this is the track to go. And he's fighting it back with his whole being. He's tried several different routes and he's genius. So I totally concur. We need more programs where people in the community, especially social entrepreneurs, can be brought back in. And I'm not talking on a volunteer capacity because that doesn't help anything move forward, right? So maybe that's a university who comes and supports and says, this is important for our young people in these schools. And these are people out there running businesses who care, right? It's not all about the money. It's about bringing up the young people along with us and making that happen, making that a reality, because the kids see that and they know it's real and they know that is a path that they can take and that it's valued.
Absolutely.
I hope you all see why I'm such big fans of Jenee and Debra. The future of education, I mean, there's some of the best leaders out there, and just to have you both on the same call at the same time is a real blessing. So
Thank you, Roger.
both for being here, and thank everybody for being on this call and a part of this whole series. It was definitely a dream of ours to start highlighting entrepreneurs who just don't get highlighted enough, right? We want to create a platform for you to share your stories and to sell into the community, and you guys have done just that. So thank you very much. And with that said, I want to open up the floor to our wonderful audience who's here, and you guys can ask your own questions of our two panelists.
And I'd like to say before the questions start, if anyone's interested in a link to the digital version of our latest magazine, Motivos Bilingual Magazine, just you could private message your email to me and I'll make sure you get a copy of it sent to you.
Thank you.
Roger, how are you taking questions? Do you want people to raise their hands or how will you?
Yeah, so you guys can throw your hands up or emojis. I'll definitely look for you.
Because I have like a gazillion, so
Go ahead. So please,
so,
feel free.
so I'll start and then I'll be quiet. So I'm probably going to have a Zoom with Debra and Jenee just because to talk over so many things. So thank you both for being here and for the wonderful inspirational things that you said and heartfelt. So I've been taking notes because, as Jenee said, when you do so many things, what do I say to my team? These things, they fall out of my head if I don't write them down, right? You forget. So, the idea of the first thing you said, which I think, Debra, is so critical, is the self-esteem, is the confidence.
Yes.
And, our tagline here at the Close School is entrepreneurship education empowers everyone. I could not agree more that it's got to start when they're 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old. Getting involved in initiatives, in projects, you learn so much in starting something. And so, totally agree on that point. And I'm so glad that both of you were in education. And the other thing that I wanted to bring out is that I'd just like to add, there was one question I think that Roger asked was, how can all entrepreneurs support female entrepreneurs? One of the things that I've always thought about is women need to understand that they need to have each other's backs.
Yes.
So, and I'm not sure how we do that, particularly during middle school, kind of what goes on. But I think, I do think that part of learning learning that self-esteem, dealing with perfectionism, that I think is a good thing, that you want things to be excellent. And how do we get the support of other women in doing that? and I heard both of you say, we need more, one of you said spaces with like-minded individuals to connect and to support each other.
Yes.
And I think if we could, and there are women's entrepreneurship groups and things like this, but it's college or it's beyond. How do we do that for younger girls? Like when they're in grade school and middle school, how do they know that they should be supporting each other?
Yes.
Through this journey? So I think that was just beautiful things that you said. And the other thing I think that is very interesting, particularly for my students that are here, because we have concentrations in corporate entrepreneurship, in new venture creation, and social entrepreneurship.
Yes.
And I think it was, Jenee, you gave me a really interesting idea. How do we get the corporate entrepreneurs together in a room with the new venture creators to share stories, to share ideas, and things like this? I'm not sure that anything kind of like that exists.
Right.
So that's a really cool concept that you have. So I have like more things that I could talk about. I'll step back and
I'm very much about interconnections, and because of my varied experiences all over the world, I tend to make connections where others may not. And so I'd be happy to brainstorm, act as a sounding board, but I do feel like it's a missing piece, and it curtails opportunities that if we're there, real magic could happen. Amazing things could happen,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like there is a huge disconnect between what goes on in corporate America and, when you think of a small business organization, that's 500 or less. Most of the businesses that we, do business with are small business organizations, right? And so I feel like starting out, and even thinking about that confidence and the fact of, I always tell my students, I say, the only competition you have is looking back at you in the mirror. That is the only competition you have, is looking back at you in the mirror. Get out of your own head. And so one of the other organizations that, I'm the executive director of, Shine Society of Excellence. So we specialize in mentoring and through our 5 comprehensive steps, search, help, integrate, network, execute. And so we just did a cohort of, it was called the Shine Beauty and Grooming Academy. And I met with young ladies, and I was actually challenged and pivoted this year to meet with young men to really go through a whole regimen of self-care, dealing with their skin. They created their own hair and skincare products and things like that, and built, for me, seeing that and letting the students know that, like, you need to collaborate with each other in this. They were all pushed into their groups. They grew organically, right? And it was initially meant for young ladies, right? It was really initially meant for young ladies. And I didn't feel like I could bring enough to reach the young men. But thankfully, thank God, I was able to, and they gravitated towards it. But by the end of their showcase, I let them know, I said, you all are not in competition with each other. If you see an asset that your partner or your colleague offers, you need to collaborate, because someone once told me that your network is your net worth. So however, and so when you are dealing with adversity and challenges and things like that you face in business, that's in your own head. That's you looking back in the mirror. All the rest of this is adaptive. These are changes that are always going to be there. How are you maneuvering through that? And how are you looking to create more of a collaborative environment and workforce? And that's what's going to be groundbreaking. That's going to be the new trend, is, teaming up with different things and just letting them know of different brands, like thinking of KFC and Taco Bell. Taco Bell doesn't care if you go to Taco Bell or if you go to KFC. That's all in the same brand, right? So it's not a huge competition that I feel like people need to really be set on, but really understand the collaboration, the collaborative and cooperative economics is another thing that I think is huge. Yeah.
This is amazing. Thank you all for sharing. Do you have any questions? Feel free.
Well, just to piggyback on that as well, like some of those laid out plans and tiers, if you will, that don't exist in the entrepreneurship world as much, right? relates back to that sense of self, sense of doubt, sense of self-confidence, that credentialing, right? That proof of that Debra was talking about earlier too, like you feel like you have to say all these things so that people know.
Yeah.
So it ties together to make a more cohesive unit.
Absolutely.
Does anybody have a question? Because I want to jump in.
Oh,
And
feel free.
in terms of young women, so the dean asked about young women, the Altamari summer program. I mean, Karime is on this call. She's a student of mine in the Motivos Media Mentorship Program, and she participated in that Altamari Summer Entrepreneurship Camp. And she said afterwards, I didn't know if entrepreneurship was for me. Now it doesn't seem so hard to start a business because the steps were made clear, the steps were laid out. And so when you are exposed to, when you become familiar with, when you meet someone who has done it, it doesn't seem so hard anymore. And possibilities are awakened in a young person where before it was just a bunch of question marks, you know?
Yeah.
Thanks for being here, Karime. It's so nice to have you on the call again. And I see Michael has his hand up. Yeah, feel free to ask your question.
Yeah, I have a quick question for Jenee. So basically, when you were asked about how entrepreneurs can support women, you mentioned there's too much competition. Do you believe that there's too much competition between genders, or do you think that's just in between the women entrepreneurs? And feel free to elaborate on that.
Yeah, no, I see it amongst women. I think it may stem from it's generational, right? So like my mother was the firstborn, but her brother got the bicycle. Her brother got the chance to go to college that was paid for. Her brother got whatever, right? So as a female, you haven't been conditioned to think that you deserve the thing first or that you should get it. And so when you see something, you're like, I gotta run, I gotta jump in there, you know, like I have to act now. And so maybe it stems from that a little bit, but I think it's changing, you know, and I think the millennials have a slightly different mindset, heart set perhaps, and it's good, but it's still there. And so that's what I was referring to, kind of women to women. There are circles where it's just tough, you know, it's trust building. It has to be these networking events with women entrepreneurs, most of them are transactional. They have to be transformational. They have to be transformative. They have to be relational based. And so it's getting to the space where it feels safe and comfortable to do that. And there are spaces, there are more collaborative spaces, but it's not the norm.
Yeah, can I add on to that as well too, Jenee? You hit so many points. I would 1000% agree. It is more so the female to female. Just, you know, I feel as though sometimes, you know, females get in this space where, like you said, they're trying to hurry up and get their piece of the pie, and they feel as though they need to kind of slam down on others' necks to get there. Instead of slamming down on your sister's necks, build and lift as you climb. And shameless plug, Ujima Collective really focuses on cooperative economics, and I work with them as well. But it's really building, you know, as you climb, and that you don't have to be in this kind of dog eat dog world. I feel as though even when I went to Chatham, I didn't realize the difference it was going to, at the time, an all females institution versus a co-ed institution. And the fact that I knew my voice was going to be heard, that was a given. This was laid out for me. So to feel as though I was going to be shut out by anyone, it would just be, you know, maybe my sister next to me who didn't agree with me. And I feel like that's the mentality sometimes we come across, is that it's this vicious cycle of just like, I have to get there before someone else. And I don't care how I get there, I just need to do that. And that definitely needs to take a huge shift.
That's a great question.
And it's tricky too. So if you're of the mindset of being a collaborator and lifting others as you go, right? It slows you down as a business owner. I'm okay with that. I know my growth will be slower because I want to lift others up with me as I go. And I spend a lot of time mentoring young people. So I'm okay with that and fortunate enough to be in a space where there's not a ton of competition, right? But I will give you an example. When I worked for another entrepreneur who was a male, who was kind of training me up in the business development side of life. And I learned a ton from this experience overall. But I'll point to one example. So we met with a client, and I'm the type that I'm going to listen to what they say, and I'm going to match it up with how we can help them. So if it's a university who wants to meet reach out to the Latino community. Well, we have advertising space in our magazine. You can sponsor our team talks with the schools. You can sponsor our Write Your Way to College workshops with our 1,400 partner schools in 42 states. There's a ton of opportunities, right? But I'm going to give them back what they've said they need, and it's a happy situation. And I might say, there's also this if, and then I leave. His mindset, and this was, when I was working with him on his publication, we left and he said, Jenee, never leave anything on the table. And it's a different mindset, right? That was him. Take it all. Don't leave anything for anyone else. That was not my mindset. My mindset was we can all win. There's enough for everyone. And so when you work with other people who have a different mindset, it's tricky. I'm not saying it's completely by gender, but it's tricky.
I would agree. I would definitely agree.
Amen to that. Yeah, the mindset is everything. We preach that at the Close School, and we really live by it too. It all starts with the entrepreneurial mindset. The actions can't really be fruitful until the mindset's a certain way. So I'm happy you kind of touched on that. And yeah, it's just when some people, like you said, are all about taking and taking. And I love how both of you are more about reciprocity. You're like, hey, let's get back to the communities that we live in and serve. So keep that up.
Yeah, and mindset's huge. Like in terms of tips, right? In starting a business, if people are wondering, I would say be very careful about the people you bring alongside you, and be aware of mindset. Positive problem solver versus negative. This happened because excuse oriented. It's so important to align values before bringing people alongside of you in your endeavor. I mean, it's your dream, it's your passion. You shape the picture, you form what's happening, and people have to be aligned with what your goal is. So I'm not saying they can't have other strengths. They should complement you, but the core mindset, heart set, value system should be aligned.
Yeah, and I would like to add even on to that, Jenee, is like a tip is one quote from Simon Sinek's book, Start with Why. People buy why they'll buy your why as opposed to, buying what, right? So if you're building a brand of focusing on excellence in technology, right? People are going to gravitate towards that because you offer that and you build that relationship in that. And also, you also have to think about the fact that, when people are buying why I'm doing what I'm doing, why am I doing what I'm doing, right? And if you're always putting that out there, people, they don't, same with Apple. I'm not an Apple, I'm a Samsung girl all the way. So bless all you Apple people. But, there's a reason why the stores are lined up, with people just flocking to Apple Store, because their mission is to exceed the status quo. And they've done so effectively countless times again and again. And so, and their team, like, the brand. So, people ask me, how do you keep everything and juggle all as a serial entrepreneur, edupreneur? How do you juggle everything? And for me, by the grace of God, right? And then also I tell people I have a team, but what I don't tell them is that I'm a ball hog. Even though I have a team, right? I still like to be that solopreneur and do everything, but you're going to spread yourself out way too thin. And so you have to understand, and when Jenee was saying, even also building that trust with your team, when you have an alignment with your values, your mission, your vision, and where you're going, and you keep that as your guiding light, then everyone who's going to gravitate to you. D&K Whip Appeal, I'll tell you my quick spiel right there, right? We specialize in natural body care made to order. So when you click that button, you're getting something that's freshly made just for you. I had to memorize that. And I had to let my team know what this was. I had 2 young ladies that wanted to join the D&K Whip Appeal team 3 years ago. We told them yes, but it was 3 years ago to this day, we finally let them on the team because we didn't know what that looked like. We weren't sure about that whole, you have to know the ins and outs of your business or businesses that you are providing before you can open up to grow and scale your business on a larger scale to where it's outside of just you doing it. Can your business function outside of you? Right? Can this be replicated by someone else within your organization and still flow seamlessly? So that's a huge tip I would definitely have. Know your mission, know your vision, know your why, and focus on that. And when people gravitate to you, stay consistent in that, and the alignment will continue to flow and flourish.
Yeah, the why is so important. So if you don't speak Spanish, Motivos is the why behind the what, it's the motives. And so Motivos is almost 15 years old now, and that's the biggest reason that name was chosen for it. The why is more important than the what. And when you find your why, you find your future.
Absolutely.
I love it. There's so many like tweetable quotes in here. So we have about 5 more minutes, so we have time for 1 or 2 more questions if anybody wants to ask Jenee and Debra.
I'm going to put a link in the chat as well in case you don't have time to ask your question, or if you have a story that you feel could inspire the young people, the 14 to 24-year-olds, the 85,000 readers we have in 42 states and 4 countries. Share that story with us if you'd like to maybe talk about bringing the magazine into your school or some of the writing workshops. So I'm just going to put the link in there, and you can click on it, and then we'll be in touch afterwards too, just in case you don't have time to ask.
So I have a, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just to say, I was going to put some links in there too if you want to learn more about the different facets I'm involved in and want to support. We're always looking for donations. And if you just want to learn more about anything else that I'm doing, please, please, please go there.
So I have a quick question, a little bit of a pushback.
Okay.
And it's around the word competition, because even the fact that you're putting in your links, you know, they're you know, right? You hear me? There has to be, I think, a competitive streak. You know, you want to excel. You know, I understand, you know, network supporting, I get it. But at the end of the day, entrepreneurs sell, whether it's profit, for-profit, education, whatever the product is. Roger's shaking his head. I can see him, right? And so that innately involves competition. You know, you want to be, I have to say this, you want to be better than the people in your product or service category. You want to deliver the best service. So, you know, I think that it's important to understand that, I mean, from my point of view, I understand maybe they're different buckets. So, you know, if you're in a room with other women and you want to be supportive and help them with their business, it's a very Silicon Valley kind of culture that we sometimes in Philadelphia do not have, right? But at the end of the day, you know, you need to make that profit. You need to make that, and you need to be competitive. The perfectionist in you, I think, you know, almost takes you there. So just sort of reactions to that.
Well, and I think, you know, I'm glad you mentioned that because, you know, I feel like the competitive, you know, you have to realize that when I say you, the only competition you have is looking back at you in the mirror, is that aside from you don't want to be someone that, of course, monopolizes a market. You want to be someone that you have your market share, you know, you have your piece of that pie as well. But what is your differentiating factor? And at the end of the day, if you have whatever you do, you have to show that you are providing value to anyone's life that you are presenting this product or service to. And you have to know your target market, right? You got to sort through the crowd. Amateurs are going to try to convince you, right? But when you can sort through the crowd and figure out the people that are buying why you're doing what you're doing, right? And the fact of the matter is the way that you're getting there is not at the expense of trying to bring others down, right? That humility, right? And really stressing that is such a huge point. And I
Competing
feel,
with integrity, competing with
Right.
integrity.
Right.
yes, absolutely.
Right. And competition can be good. I mean, I was a gymnast for 13 years, competed
Right.
Division I. When you see someone do something amazing, you respect.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a connection point. But like Debra said, not at the expense of someone else. You're not going to steal the chalk when someone goes on the bars. You're not going to move the mat or, you know, make the board cockeyed when they're running for the vault. That's
right. That sounds like a crazy Lifetime movie. Yeah. Yeah, you're doing.
And Millie Antonis had a question to ask, so it'd be great.
Hi, everyone. I'm Antonis from the Close School. I'm Dean DeCarolis's assistant. You know, one question that came to mind, and I apologize if this was covered in certain ways and I may have missed it. You know, I always think my background is my master's was in science, technology, and society. And we looked at some of the structural disadvantages that are sometimes in place for women. You know, we looked at women in science, women in business, you know, and I was thinking of the pandemic, and I was thinking if there are any, you know, inadvertent, not necessarily the things that people do purposefully, but are there structural disadvantages you think women entrepreneurs are facing? You know, one thing I'm thinking about is caregiving, for example, often disproportionately falls on women. I was just wondering if either of you had any thoughts on the pandemic and any, you know, structural inequality, you know, issues that may have come up. Thank you.
Yes. But you know, I tend not to look at things as I don't know, I'm always the glass, you know, half full person. So, but it has been tough. I lost my father last April and was out of state with him in hospice for over a month. And my husband had to take off work to be with our child because the daycares are all closed. Plus he leaves too early to go to work for us to have him take the child to daycare anyway. And his HR could not figure out FMLA for your father-in-law. It had to be your father. And then his father passed in August and he'd used all his vacations, so couldn't go to Costa Rica to be with his father when he was dying. I mean, this pandemic has been crazy in terms of people figuring out how best to support families. And running a business then from your home with a 3-year-old is very interesting, very interesting. Now we're at the point where we will allow someone in the house to help if they're masked, et cetera. So just being very cautious, but when facing such great loss, it heightens everything. And so, you know, in terms of taking risks, you don't want to take a risk anymore. It's someone's life, you know? So it's been tough. And yeah, I don't know how to fix it, but I wish the HR departments could figure something out when there is kind of a entrepreneur and corporate partnership where one could have maybe done something, but as an entrepreneur, there's a lot that's not available to you. With regard to maternity leave, I mean, I brought my laptop to the hospital when I was giving birth and finished, you know, approving pages on press because I had a deadline and my son came 3 days early. And if I'd known I could have gone home in one day, I would have. They told me I had to stay 2 nights. My husband was the one in the bed and I was on the chair with the laptop. The nurses thought we were crazy, but so yeah, there's a lot in there, too much to go into, but thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, I would definitely want to add that, you know, there's a lot of challenges and things like that. You know, childcare, right? You know, kind of my husband, you know, Jenee, you know, that 3-year-old, you know, my husband, he's on escalated calls and he's like, oh, I got the toddler right here. I can't mute her, but I'm going to put you on a brief hold. So, I mean, it's definitely, you know, but I feel as though, like you said, having that mindset of the glass half full, the positive mindset, seeing, you know, my student said to me one time, they said, you know, Ms. Titus, I don't know what it is, but every single time I see you, you always have like a smile on your face. You're very positive. And I said, listen, I am going through it. I'm going through it. I said, but at the end of the day, there is a space that I want to be able to do that and have that space, right? And I want to teach you that, no, you don't have to shield or hide what's going on in your life. But I feel as though if you try to really shift your mindset and try to have more of a positive and physically place yourself in positive mindsets. And what I mean by that is like, there's times where I would just have to just be like my students. The teachers would be like, hey, all right, guys, see you, click. And they just, before the teacher could say bye, the screen is closed. Sometimes I just have to walk away. You just have to walk away. You have to, literally train your mind to reposition yourself to a place of where you are going to grow. One of my best friends said to me, she said, whatever you're going through, please don't let it make you hostile. Don't let it make you cold-hearted, right? Because that's not the person that you are when you look in the mirror. So in any of those instances, that's what's kind of helped me. A lot of prayer, supplication, I go, church, all of that, right? And so I feel it's tying a lot of that in and really communicating and expressing that and not being afraid. I feel as though having a female college perspective, it really gave me that platform to say, like, the world is mine. You're going to listen to me. I'm not being quiet. I'm just going to go. And I don't care who's in the room. You may not agree with it, but it is what it is. I'll reflect on it later. We can have a conversation about it later if we didn't agree. And so I feel as though when, I'm telling people I'm being inconvenienced, thankfully, at Panels Charter and many of the facets that I've been in my life have been very understanding and know those circumstances and expect those circumstances to happen. But in other places where that's not, I really wish there were more of an open-mindedness in that as well.
Thank you both so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This is incredible. I just see like a whole book coming. I mean, I see you already speaking. This is great. I want to, again, thank you both for being here, Ms. Debra Tituts and Jenee Chizick-Aguero. Everybody who's still here, please join me for a round of applause. It's been amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dean DeCarolis, for all you do for your support of these programs. And thank everybody on this call for supporting these amazing women entrepreneurs. So please stay in touch with us at the Close School, and we will be hopefully hearing from you soon. Take care. God bless you all. Have a great night.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great job, ladies.